Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Ask Gardenstead with your hosts,
Jaz
and Shannon. Today, we're going to be talking about houseplants.
Repotting is a really big topic.
Yeah, and I love that houseplants have totally come back.
Yes.
They weren't really cool for like the 90s, 2000s.
They were boomed in the 70s.
Yeah.
And then they kind of had a decline in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
And now they're back, and they're back on fire because of social media.
This is Megan. She says, while doing my weekly watering, I noticed my Hoya was super saturated. Only water it once a week. It's usually in a macrame plant hanger. It's healthy, but should I repot it with some drier soil? Leave it as is. I had to pitch another plant from root rot last week. I don't want to do that to this one.
So, may I?
Yes, please. Start.
Okay. I would not repot it with drier soil. I would just, that might shock the plant. I would just leave it be. Let it dry out. Let the whole soil dry out. It depends. It sounds like if you had root rot with another one and you're watering this once a week and it's staying saturated,
You're watering too much.
It's too much water.
Yeah.
So just cut back on your watering. It depends on the amount of light that you're getting. So if that plant isn't getting, that's a beautiful Hoya, by the way, stunning. If it's not getting a ton of light, it doesn't need as much water.
What I would have said is pull it out, pull some of the soil away, and just take a look at the roots. Sometimes if you see that the roots are kind of
Brown
squishy
and
mushy, you want to sort of investigate what it looks like. Sometimes what I do, I agree you don't want to shock the plant, but sometimes what I'll do is I'll pull it out, I'll get rid of some of the lower base soil around maybe any of the really saturated and just put drier soil in and around it, mix some new soil in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I shock my plants all the time. I know it's not good.
So when you pull the root ball out to check, you just gently, unless it's really, really root bound where you'll have to turn it upside down, you can gently pull it up to see the roots.
That looks healthy. I mean, it needs a bit, but it looks happy.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm repotting this because this is the one I saved from my
Yeah, it
mother-in-law's
looks really
outdoor
great.
container.
Outdoor?
Oops.
She had a TriStar outdoor, eh?
Yeah. This question is from Leah.
Leah, I think, yeah.
Hi guys, it has been suggested to me that I repot my pothos now that it has so much new growth. Awesome. I'm still kind of new to this and I'm not sure how to repot something that has so many stems, if
Okay.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
It does. I've repotted a fiddle leaf, which was fine because I was just able to grab it by the trunk. Any tips and tricks would be greatly appreciated. Heading out for potting soil and fertilizer soon. Here's hoping I don't come back with more plants. Ooh, you probably did.
Oh my gosh, I went to the Home Depot the other day, literally to get a table and left with 9 plants. And a table.
9?
9. They were like great little tropicals on sale for $2.50, and some of them looked sad. They were definitely overwatering them. I saw some mold, and I was like, must save plants. I was like the plant crusader. Saving them.
Bless you.
Saving them.
That's what I do too. I save them a lot. Okay, this makes a lot of sense. But essentially, you're really repotting the exact same way as you would have done your fiddle leaf. Think about gathering the pothos vines somewhat into like a bunch.
Yeah. All the like roots, it's still one plant. I know that's tricky, like you think there's so many stems compared to a fiddle leaf fig, but it's still only one plant. So like one main set of roots. So you don't have to worry about it falling apart and it being multiple different stems. Hers is huge though.
Yeah.
It's really trailing.
So it's the same,
But it's the same
theory
concept.
though. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you would just gather, and they're stronger than you think. You can be a little bit rough with them. Gather the stems as closely as you can. And you might need another hand. Like you might need 2 people to help repot this.
Or yeah, I would take both of her hands so that she's in control of the plant.
Yeah.
And then I feel like a hairdresser. I'm like, okay, so you pull it all into a ponytail, a loose chignon,
You could use like a piece of
string.
I would use like a old T-shirt cut up a bit thicker.
Yeah.
So it doesn't cut into any of the vines.
That's true. String might cut into them. And then just have someone kind of shimmy the bottom of the pot off.
Yep, and this is actually a good point, is to have everything ready by the time you're
how
at that
excited you
point.
just got.
Organization. By the time you get to that point, you should have your other pot ready with a little bit of soil in it.
Yeah.
You should have your whole station set out. Okay, so I'm going to repot this pothos into a container that is one size bigger. The roots were coming out a little bit, so I knew it was time to repot. So my first step is I'll put a couple of inches of new soil into the bottom of the container. Press it down a little bit to compact it. You don't want any air pockets. So that's done. I take my plant with the pothos. It has a lot of vines. I just grab it with one hand, turn it upside down, and gently push it out of its old container. So with roots, what I like to do is gently loosen them up a little bit. Try not to break them very much. I mean, if a few break, it's really not the end of the world. I gently loosen and I remove as much soil as I can. I often give it a shake, and then I usually stick a finger or a thumb in the middle and kind of just work a little bit of the soil off. You're basically wanting to just loosen up some of those roots so they can adapt to their new space quicker. So that looks pretty good. And I'm placing it into the new container. What I'm looking for at this stage, at this step, is that the root ball is in a good height with the pot, with the new pot. If it isn't, if it's too low, add another inch of soil. If it's too much, remove some of the soil. So what I'm going to be doing is with one hand, keeping the vines as close together as I can. I just use my hands to add new soil, and I'm going to add it to the sides, keeping the plant in the middle in the same spot, pressing, and then rotating the pot 360 to add soil all the way around. After there's enough soil in there and the plant is somewhat secure, I'll shake it around a little bit and tap it. This is getting out any air pockets, air bubbles. Roots don't need that. So I'm just making sure that the soil is quite compact. I'm not jamming it like really hard, but I'm giving it a pretty firm touch. And then basically just filling all the way to the top. And then I'm going to water it in, wait till all of the water drains. Sometimes you can add a little bit more soil because the water will decrease the soil level. And then I'll water again and until all some of the water drips out of the bottom. Next question is from Mika.
Mika, welcome back.
Hi, Mika.
Oh, she says, OMG, I'm such a nut bar. I repotted my spider mama today. I'm so horrible at repotting. It's not centered.
Oh, no.
None of my plants ever end up centered. Can I fix this? Can I leave it like this? She's 4 years old and has 2 babies on one stem. I'm in love with her. She was my very first plant.
Aw,
and my mother-in-law
awesome.
started her from a baby from one of her plants.
Plants have so much sentiment.
Yeah,
like,
I
there's
love
so
it.
much emotion attached to plants.
I like when it's like someone's giving you a plant that's a baby from their plant.
Yeah.
I think it's so sweet. So, 2 things. Yes, you can fix it. Don't stress out. You can just repot it. But it also will probably be fine like that. So don't also worry.
Yeah, what I would do is I think about this as a really huge analogy. About 10 years ago, I was on site doing an installation for a garden with this,
I like story time with Jaz.
this huge olive tree. And my boss got the crane or whatever to drop it in, and it comes with like a wire basket.
Yeah.
And it was just a little bit off than what she wanted it to be, but there was only myself and my other gardening partner, Lauren, and we actually had to tie rope to the wire cage and manually rotate it, like pull it a fraction, because my boss wanted it like this like different way.
Yeah.
So if I can move a huge, I don't know, 800-pound olive tree, you can definitely shift a spider plant. So what I would do is I would water, and then I would manually manipulate it down a little bit. So I'd shift it and push it a little bit over to the center, and I'd add a little bit more soil on the other side.
That's exactly what I would do.
Yeah.
I find the hard thing about repotting or planting, like sometimes I'll plant a new rose bush and walk away all proud and it's diagonal, is you have to get it in your hole and hold it still until the soil is like almost 3/4 the way up. It's better to do it with two people because you can hold it still where you want it, and you have to equally fill around everywhere. If you just put all your soil and then try to fill the other, you've tilted it.
Yeah.
So it's tricky to get things really straight, for sure.
And that's called like backfilling.
Yeah.
A hole. And so use that same concept with plants. Center them, hold them, and then with another hand, grab soil if you can with your hand. I usually do it all, but with a trowel or whatever.
Hand. Yeah.
Hold it, and then you're just slowly adding and adding and adding around the sides.
Yeah.
Sarah from New York. My friend gave me some of her aloe plant, and I planted them with rocks in the bottom for drainage, and now it looks like this. Oh. Any ideas why it has lost all of its color? I hope I didn't kill them and can save them. Thanks in advance for your help.
Oh yeah, that's dead.
Those are dead.
Those are definitely dead.
Those are dead. So
They're squishy shoes. They're water-filled squishy shoes.
yeah, they're root rot.
Yeah.
Rocks in the bottom, yes, it can work. But you need a lot of it, and then the whole pot gets heavier.
Yeah.
And
I still would put drainage holes.
And you have to be really careful with how much water, because you can't check. So when I check when there's drainage holes, I actually pull. I usually keep a plastic nursery pot
Yes.
in a bigger ceramic pot.
Cash pot. Yep.
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 And I touch my plants constantly. I pull it up and I'll look at the bottom to see if the bottom of the pot is dry. So
Yeah.
you don't have that type of control with when you can't check the bottom of the pot.
Yeah, drainage holes are key.
I do think they're dead.
They're dead.
But try again. And aloes, depending on the amount of light, they don't need as much water. They're succulent. They hold
yeah,
leaves.
I was just gonna say that.
They hold water in their leaves.
Yeah. The more like
Try again.
smushy, like thick and I don't know, waterlogged looking the plant is. That's
Yes.
the wrong word. Not waterlogged, but like like a succulent and an aloe, it holds so much water within it because they're drought tolerant.
Yeah.
So you definitely overwatered. I'm sorry, Sarah. Good luck next time. Hello, Alyssa. So, I'm very new to this plant life, but I've had some plants. This is her newest addition. It's beautiful. This is the container we bought for it to repot it in, but now I'm thinking this is way too big for right now. Can I put rocks in the bottom to help with drainage and lift it up a bit, or should I get a smaller pot for now? So,
That
I wouldn't repot, first of all.
I would leave it in that
I
container.
would leave it in that
for
container.
At least a month.
Yep. And you can definitely add rocks to the bottom of the silver pot to lift that pot up. Totally fine. Don't repot it in that. You need to have drainage holes.
And you don't even need to put rocks in the bottom of that. You could put like a box.
Oh yeah,
or
like a cart,
something to
something
lift it
that's
up.
way lighter. Yeah.
But I would not repot. That is about 3 times the size of that original pot. And when you repot, you want to go up just one size. So if it is a 4-inch pot, I would repot it into a 6-inch pot.
Yeah.
That way you're not shocking the plant, and the roots aren't going to they just need that little bit more to
Space.
grow.
Yeah.
So that is a very, very large pot, and it probably doesn't have a drainage hole under
No.
it. So if anything, when you go to repot that plant, repot it in one size bigger, and you can use it. You can put it in that aluminum pot, but prop it up. Don't plant directly into that aluminum pot. Cynthia. Hi, Cynthia. She says, I have a 2.5-year-old aloe looks awesome.
Yes.
It has 2, possibly 3 pups growing. I want to separate and repot them so they don't strain the mama, but I read somewhere that I shouldn't during active growing season. Should I wait until late summer, early fall? You know what? Just looking at your aloe, I would wait till fall. Let those pups get a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
And then that's a safe bet.
Yeah. They're little. I don't know if I would worry so much about the time of the year as to the size of the pups. I like that she called them pups instead of babies.
They are pups, yeah.
I also really like the look of your aloe plant. It's like a spidery aloe plant. It's not quite straight up.
Yeah, it's very
pretty.
deserty.
Isabel from Illinois. I just got the ZZ plant last night from IKEA. It's a good looking plant for IKEA. I just noticed that the new shoots have brown on them. It's IKEA. Also just noticed the roots are coming out from the bottom. This means I need to repot right or just trim the roots. Welcome to the journey. We're happy to have you on the journey. The obsession is true. Don't trim your roots.
Don't trim them. And also ZZs really do like their roots tight.
Yeah.
If I've ever failed a ZZ, I've repotted at the wrong time. They can have really, really tight roots. Depends on how much root is coming out of the bottom.
Well, it's quite a bit. I would very carefully pull your ZZ out and take a look. If you see mostly roots and not a 50-50 mix of soil and roots just by looking at it, then repot it.
Okay, this is what I would do.
Oh.
I would take it out. So another really good tip with repotting is to water the day before you know you're going to repot something.
Yes.
Then the soil is not sopping wet, but it is not super dry. And everything sticks together.
Yeah.
So I would water the day before, pull it out the next day, and I would actually add to the bottom of the pot an inch or 2 of soil and compact that soil down and add the plant right back on top. So it has another 2 inches of soil to explore.
In a new pot or the same?
Same pot.
But I don't think she has this. Well,
I think there is.
She might have a bit of space. Yeah.
So that way you are giving the ZZ a little bit more time in its original pot. And there's a little bit more soil for the roots to plunge into. Mm-hmm. But you're keeping the roots tight.
So the brown spots don't look like any type of mold at all. I think it just looks like damage in the sense that it was in a busy store and things could have like scraped it and it's like scabbed. If that makes sense. When you get a cut and it scabs over. With plants though, they'll scab over and they'll sort of stay like that. If you really hate the look of it, you could cut the leaves off, but you really don't need to. The plant is super fine.
The next question is from Teresa. She says, hello all, I'm in need of some advice. This is Miguel. Ooh, hello Miguel.
I love when you name your plants, Miguel.
Miguel, that's a great name.
Welcome to the club, Miguel.
Being a newbie, I asked the folks at the nursery what to expect. They said repot after you see 5 inches of new growth. We're now at 10 inches of growth, but I don't know what size pot to buy. So I would buy just one more size up from what you have it in.
Yeah, it looks super healthy. I would actually do what we've talked about, take it right out, look at the roots, because if it's not, it's so hard. I don't like when people give you like water once a week, repot after this, because you have to look at your plants. It looks super healthy. Pull it out. If Miguel seems very root bound, repot him. If not, I would leave him.
Yeah. Measure across the top of your pot this distance from here to here is the size of the pot. So if you measure that maybe looks like 8 inches, let's say, just get the 10-inch pot.
So thank you all for joining us today on Ask Gardenstead, and I guess we'll see you next time.